Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the CKLVX SL41. This is the latest OnePlus 4 from CKLVX. I recently reviewed the D41, if you guys recall, and this is a new model which they've also recently released. Same philosophy, OnePlus 4, but with a different tuning profile. Anyway, I'm not going to bother you with the box. The box is a very simple affair, and basically inside the box what you get is this case, which we already seen in the D41. It's got an ample array of tips. No real issues there with the tips, and the tips are actually not bad. I mean, the truth be told, the tips are not bad. The cable is a very nice cable. This is a cable that we've seen used as well already, and not only in the D41 but in the likes of the Dazs, the 41T. So it's a very nice cable, and I've actually bought quite a few of these cables because it measures very well and it actually works quite well. Quite a few other IEMs that I own. And then as for the IEMs themselves, again, resin shell, very nicely built. There's two colors available, a blue and a black. You can kind of more or less get a glimpse of what's inside there. The shell is not the most see-through possible, but you can kind of get a glimpse of what's inside. Beautiful fit. I mean, again, nothing to be said with regards to the fit. The shell is similar. I mean, there is some similarity to the D41, just a slight difference in the shape, as you can see. Okay, but overall, I think the biggest difference will probably be in the thickness. The D41 on the left side is, there we go. The D41 is slightly thicker than the SL41. In terms of the drivers, I'm not sure what are the model of the BAs being used, but I assume it will be something along the lines 29689 for the mids, and then 33518 for the highs, or 31736 or something like that. It's got a 10mm dynamic driver, which again is well, it's been an area of some confusion whether or not the CKL40 the D41 also had a 10mm or a 7mm. The same situation with the Pula, the PA02. But anyway, let's for the sake of argument and for the sake of just once and for all bearing, just let's forget about this and move on. They all got 10mm drivers, and they all are 4BAs. So as I've just mentioned, I've also got the Pula, the PA02. I don't know. Again, this is another area that has been, the subject of much talk. Graphically, and again, I will show you the graphs in a minute. Graphically, the PA02 and the D41, they graph almost identical. I mean, I've got two sets of each, and they all graphed within each other's within a very tight margin, 1.5 dBs of each other. So I don't know, all I do know is they sound exactly the same. They are both fantastic IEMs. End of story. SL41 in same configuration. I've got here the Tense Jumkara. I've got here as well the Mega 5P Ultra from Häagen. And then I've got here two more expensive IEMs, which I thought would be interesting to kind of throw in the mix. The Moondrop Blessing 3 and the Full Performer 8. In terms of pricing, we are talking about $185 here for the Pula, which now you can get it for a little bit cheaper during the spring sales, for about $165. The CKLVX D41 is about $165. The SL41 anywhere between $185 and $200, depending on whether you're getting it from the actual official store or through HIFIGO. The Cara, more or less in the $160-$65 price range. The high senior is a little bit more expensive, $239, although sometimes you can get some discounts and it comes down to like $219 more or less. Blessing 3, $319, and the Performer 8 usually priced in the upper 300s, $370, $380. Right now you can get it cheaper for about $340 something dollars. So what can I say here about the SL41? Well, much like its sibling, the D41, it sounds fantastic. I mean, that's the reality. I don't know what sort of magic MYER-AUDIO has been implementing here. I've got no idea who's the gentleman that is tuning the IEMs for them, but he surely does know what he's doing. So one thing is for sure, the gentleman does know what he's doing. And the proof is, I mean, the D41 sounds absolutely fantastic. I mean, absolutely nothing that can be, in my opinion, faulted. In my review of the D41 and of the Puller PA02, I said that both of these IEMs are up there with what are, in my opinion, the top references in that price range of up to $200. So I'm talking about obviously the Performer 5, which I didn't bring here because I've already done that comparison, and against the Chopin, the binary audio Chopin, also priced at around $200. These two are up there. They're all trading blows with each other. There's no one of those IEMs that truly stands out. Even the Truth is Nova, which is also considered to be one of the references under that price bracket. These easily trade blows with those IEMs, and if I have to be totally honest, when I look at what would be my choices, a full Performer 5, CKLVX PA02, the D41 and the PA02 and the Performer 5 would probably be my first choices. They just sound, to my ears and with my music, they just sound absolutely fantastic. I mean, not detracting anything from the Chopin, not detracting anything from the Truth is Nova, but those three sound fantastic. The SL41, my initial audition of the SL41, I wasn't like impressed or disappointed. I knew it had a different tuning. I graphed it. I saw it had a different tuning, but I was kind of a little bit undecided. Why? Because, and maybe this was the effect of having looked at the graph at the same time as I was listening, because I was listening to it, and what I was listening wasn't being shown in the graph. The graph after the initial pin again has got a few, peaks and dips and so on. And I was listening to it, and I was saying, this just doesn't compute. I'm seeing all these dips, but when I'm listening, it doesn't sound like there's all these dips there. And then the reality is, I played around with a few more tips, found that these tips from PENON, they are the ones that actually work the best, and then played around as well with the sources, and with all of this, the IEM ended up burning in a little bit more, or brain burn occurred a little bit more, because the burning in process is always somewhat of an area that is a little bit gray. But the reality is this: the SL41 is a very nice sounding IEM. It's got a lot of the traits of the D41 and of the PA02. I'm not going to deny that, but while the bass on those two is more of a gliding bass, here they've kind of attempted more of a tucked bass. But the way they've done the tuck and the energy they've given after the tuck until the mids, the majority of the mids come into play, has been so well done, so balanced, that you don't feel that void that sometimes happens in some IEMs which have got that tuck, and then there's nothing until then the pin again happens. And I think one of the main reasons for that is because the pin again as well is also a very moderate pin again. Everything sits within a very tight window of operation. There's no massive gain into the bass, there's no massive gain into the pinna, and so because everything sits within a reasonably tight window of operation, you don't notice that lack of impact that an IEM that usually has that tuck bass sometimes does convey. How can I now break down this in a way that will be easy for me to then position it better? All of these IEMs, they all play well. I mean, let's be realistic. They all play well. I just a few minutes ago mentioned that under that $200 price bracket, my preferences would be Performer 5 and the D41 or the PA02. They sound exactly the same, so I'm not going to carry on saying those three. I mean, either one of these two and the Performer 5 are my preferences. The Cara when compared with those three, the Performer 5s, or it has its qualities, but it just lacks ultimately a little bit of that extra little bit amount of detail, that extra little bit amount of polish that you find not only in the Performer 5, but you also find in these two. And the same applies here on the SL41. I find the SL41 comparatively to these two to be a smoother presentation. I'll be reviewing the Ziget 5.3 and DOS 5 soon, so I don't want to talk too much about those two IEMs here, but the difference that exists in those two IEMs is very much the sort of difference that exists between the D41 and the SL41. Both of them are fantastic. Both of them play very well, but one is a little bit more energetic. I would say the D41 is a little bit more high energy, while the SL41 is a little bit more laid back, a little bit more elegant in its presentation. But the differences are very minor. That is the reality. We are talking about very minor differences, and that execution, that polish in the execution, is what then differentiates it from, for example, the Cara. The Cara comes across as a more energetic IEM, but less polished, less detailed ultimately than the SL41. Songs like, for example, Lazy from Bump to Soul. It's not that it doesn't sound good on the Cara. It sounds good on the Cara, but it just sounds that little extra bit more engaging here on the SL41. Control You from Movement, again, sounds very good on the Cara. This just has that little extra amount of atmosphere, that little extra amount of engagement that captivates you more. Okay, compared to the HiCine, the Mega 5P Ultra. We are talking about obviously a price difference now that exists. I mean, anywhere between $30 to $50 of price difference. Is there anything that the Mega 5P Ultra will do better than the SL41, or for that matter than the D41 or the PA02? Not really. I mean, it is a very well-tuned IM. I really like it. I really enjoy it. But I think that for it to have been a little bit more competitive, it's not really the tuning that is the issue, because the tuning is, like I said, very much similar, but it's the price which it's at. Okay, fine, you can argue the price is justified because it brings a nice cable, because it brings a nice case. Those are valid points, without a doubt. But I think that this is an IM that should be priced at $200 or just over $200 constantly, in order for it to be more competitive, and in order for it to be then an IM that you can safely say, yes, it's an alternative, because it costs almost the same and you have a better case, you have a nice cable, you have nice accessories. At the present moment, and as it is now currently priced, it doesn't do anything significantly better than the SL41, than the D41, than the PA02. It doesn't. There are occasions where, yes, one or two things will come across a little bit better, but it doesn't do anything significantly better. So I would say that the most sensible choice ultimately would be to go for something like the SL41 if you are in the market for buying an IM of this sort. If, however, you already have an Ultra, I mean, don't go sell the Ultra to buy this. It doesn't make sense. The same thing as if you have a Mega 5, a Performer 5, or if you have a D41 or PA02, do you now go sell those ones to get this? No. The differences that are going to be present are so minor, and might not even, and the reality is this, you might not even pick up on them. You might even think, oh, okay, there isn't really a difference that I can understand. Why did I sell it? I should have stayed with what I was. Now, compared with the Blessing 3 and with the Performer 8, the reason why I brought these two out was because I heard people comparing the PA02 and ultimately, to a certain extent as well, the D41 to these two IEMs. And the truth is the comparison is valid up to a point. It is valid up to the point where Yes, at lower volumes, these two have got a little bit more bass presence that will maybe just give that little extra amount of warmth and fill out songs just a little bit better. Control You from Movement, for example, is one such song. You listen to it on either here or on the Performer 8 or on those two, and at lower volumes you feel that maybe, okay, those two are equal, on equal footing, and they make no sense. And by default, the SL41 as well, the same thing. Now, when you start increasing the volume, then it's when things start changing a little bit. The Blessing 3, when you start increasing the volume, makes itself more prominent in the mids and the highs. An absolute beast when it comes to its technicalities, soundstage, imaging, detailed retrieval. All of that becomes even better than what it is at lower volumes. But the disparity between the bass, which is at best adequate at low volumes, becomes barely adequate when your volume is pushed up higher. And so, it is it's complicated. Let's put it that way. It's complicated to say, oh, now those two are better, and they're not better for the following reason. At higher volumes, it's not that they lose their composure, but they seem to slightly become less polished than what the Blessing 3 is able to maintain itself. The Blessing 3 is, although thinner sounding, more polished, more elegant in its execution, okay? And technically it is superior to those two. As compared to the SL41, the difference is less. Why? Because of the fact that this has got a smoother tuning. When it's pushed, when you push the volume up, it maintains its composure slightly better than what those two do. And that means that although there is still a difference in terms of technically the Blessing 3 being a little bit superior to the SL41, I would probably and very confidently say that SL41 or Blessing 3, if I was to choose which one, I'd probably save the money and go for the SL41, because what it loses out in terms of its technical capabilities to the Blessing 3, it makes up for a little bit more engagement in the bass, a little bit more fullness in the bass, a little bit more lushness. And like I said, it's something that is noticeable on songs which have a little bit more of that bass energy. So if you like listening to a little bit of EDM, yes, you will see that this is able to manage those styles, that style of music a little bit better. Piece of Me from Candace Springs is a song that I like listening to. It sounds fantastic on the Blessing 3. I have absolutely nothing to say against it. But on the SL41, it's got that little extra amount of bass that, although up top it loses in clarity ever so slightly to the Blessing 3, it makes up for that little extra energy of the bass, which just conveys that song a nice rhythm. As compared now with the Performer 8, the Performer 8, and I've said that, and I've always stood by that. It is a solid upgrade over the Performer 5. Everything the Performer 5 maybe was missing out, especially technically, especially in terms of imaging and maybe a little bit better soundstage, this does that better. And that disparity, and even compared with the Blessing 3, I do think the Performer 8 is a better IM. It is technically, it is, for me at least, a better IM than the Performer 8. And also the balance, although this is by no means a bass monster, the balance that you find between the frequencies, the different frequencies on the Performer 8 is better achieved and better maintained as you scale than it is on the Blessing 3. So this is a superior IM to any one of these three. Of the three here, or let's say of these two different types here, which is the one that maybe comes closest or is able to come closer more times to the Performer 8 style of performance, the SL41? Those two are super engaging, great fun to listen to, but they sound comparatively a little bit more V-shaped, let's put it that way. Again, these two, because of that tight window of operation that both of them have, they just sound closer more often. They trade blows more constantly. But the Performer 8 does come out on top. Of course, we're talking about a price difference of $160, give or take. Is that going to be justified? Look, as I said time and times again, I'm not in control of your finances, and ultimately you will have to decide if that is something that you want to go out and spend that money for the Performer 8. One thing is for sure, during the spring sales, you have the opportunity to buy it at a slightly reduced price, and maybe, yes, worthwhile contemplating then maybe acquiring the Performer 8 if this is something that you've had thoughts about doing and you hadn't yet done it. And that's basically it. So let me just quickly do a final recap. Base, it's got a more of a tuck style base as compared to the majority of the other IEMs here. Although the way that they've done that tuck, it doesn't lose really much mid-bass energy. Mids, upper mids and treble are very nice. They don't, the graph does not represent what I heard. I didn't hear those significant or those big peaks that you see on the graphs. It sounds way smoother than what the graphs are alluding to. Although I will say that on occasion, there were one or two female voices that just sounded a little bit more laid back. But then again, the way that the IM has been tuned is slightly more laid back, slightly more smoother. It's supposed to be a little bit more relaxed. At least that's the idea that I have. And there you have it, guys. I mean, it's a solid IM from MYER-AUDIO, a very solid IM. I can only expect great things with the future models that they will have. I'm hoping that I can get their 6BA to test it and compare it to some of the all-BA IMs that I have as well. Hopefully that will happen within the coming weeks. But the SL41, definitely a solid IM, a solid rec. If you can have the opportunity to listen to it before purchasing, obviously please do that. Don't go out and just buy it because I said so. If you have got the PA, the D41, the Performer 5, I don't think it's something that, yes, okay, it's worthwhile now going and spending the money and buying this as well. No. However, if you do have something like the Cara, I think there is enough difference to maybe justify you selling that one and getting this one, if you can sell it at a reasonably good price. If you're just going to sell it for losing money, then don't worry about that. As compared to the high senior, like I mentioned earlier, solid. They sound very good, both of them. There's really not much. They trade blows, and they really are very well executed IMs. It's just the price here which doesn't help. And then compared with the Blessing and the Performer 8, look, the reality is this: these are significantly more expensive IMs, and this, at the price that it's at, it's giving these two some trouble. More so to the Blessing 3 than to the Performer 8, but it's giving them a good run for their money, and showing that the market is more and more being able to offer us products priced more competitively that are performing really, really well. I mean, let's be honest. The performance at the beginning, from the SL41 or from the D41 or from some of these IMs priced at under $200, is a performance that just a couple of years ago you'd be paying $500, $600 easily for it. That's the truth. So it is commendable to see how HiFi has improved leaps and bounds. I mean, a few years ago, the legacy L4, the legacy L5 were all the rage, and you take those IEMs, for example, and you compare them to some of these that I have here now in front of us, especially these 5 here, and those things sound very bland by comparison. They sound a little bit disappointing. I mean, you can get that sort of performance now from other hybrids, maybe costing around $100. You take an EM6L from Singot, for example, and the EM6L, trust me, that is one seriously well-tuned IEM. Seriously well-tuned IEM. Anyway, guys, show you another graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for the SL41. And this is the graph of the SL41. So, like I was mentioning earlier, we've got this duct style of bass. I mean, it's flat by 200, but the fact that they've given this a little bit of extra energy across then the remaining of the bass and a good part of the mids. So the bass, the low mids and the mids have got a reasonably good energy, coupled to then a very modest way that the pinagay is done. It's actually okay. It's concave. Let's put it that way. In its peak, it peaks there at 2.5 and then drops and then peaks again and drops and peaks again. But the reality is, when I listen to it, I don't feel these peaks. I don't, and these dips. I feel, and what I hear is a more flatter performance, more flatter representation of music, and everything sits within. When I consider the meat of the performance, let's say, of the frequency response, let's say between 50 and 6K, everything sits within a window of about 8 dBs, which is quite commendable. I mean, let me just put here the full Performer 8, my apologies, so you guys can have an idea of how the Performer 8 okay, for Performer 8 I have centered this at let me center this at 500 Hertz. My apologies, so let me normalize this at 500 Hertz, because I think that is the frequency that will make most sense to compare. And straight away you see what I was trying to say with regards to the performance of the SL41. It is a very smooth presentation. You have just a little bit extra sub bass as compared to the Performer 8, okay, but then the way that I don't know what it is, they've done some magic here, that the rest of the tuning, especially in the upper mids and the treble, it is very smooth. Yes, the Performer 8 is definitely a little bit more detailed. That's unquestionable. I mean, it does have 7 BAs, not 4, but it is surprising how much detail actually the SL41 is actually capable of giving us. Okay, now let's start putting up here some more IEMs. This is the Cara, and I've centered the Cara. I've normalized the Cara at 1 kilohertz because this is how I perceive them to be sounding comparatively to each other. You will notice, yes, that the Cara does have a little bit more mid bass than the SL41, but overall the Cara, the thing here between the Cara and the SL41 is the Cara just sounds not as polished. It just sounds a little bit rough around the edges at times. Okay, so that's the Cara. Now compared with the this is compared with the, sorry, let me just not make a mistake here because they are so equal. So this is the PA02 and this is the CKLVX D41. So let's show the D41 first. Okay, compared to the D41, and I've normalized it again at 1 kilohertz, you would think by looking at the graph that the D41 is smoother than the SL41, and no, they are both equally smooth, and that's why I'm a little bit baffled, because when I listen to it, you don't have these peaks, or I don't get the perception of these peaks. Let's forget this one here, which is probably a couple of related one, but these peaks here don't occur. And what I do hear is that the D41 comes across as being more V-shaped, more fun, more engaging, while the SL41 comes across as being more laid back. The same thing applies, and let me just show you just the PA02. I mean, they are identical. If they are made by the same company or not made by the same company, if they are a copy of each other, I really honestly don't know. And at this moment, I really don't care. What I do know is that they graph almost identical. This could be a left and right channel of the same IEM. They sound fantastic. Both sound absolutely fantastic. End of story. Compared with the SL41, the PA02, same situation. It sounds more V-shaped. It sounds a little bit more fun, and not as smooth and was as what the SL41 does come across. Okay, now say I've shown you that one, I've shown you, yes, I've shown you Cara, I've shown you D41. Now I'm going to be showing you, this is the high senior. The high senior, the one thing that you will notice on the high senior, and it's easy to pick up on it, is especially with female vocals, it's a little bit more forward, and that has to do with the fact that the pinna gains begins earlier and peaks earlier, while most of the others peak at 2.5 or later. It peaks at around 1.5, so you notice that forwardness. However, because it's also been very well done and everything sits once again within a very tight window of operation, we're talking about a window of operation of roughly 8 dBs. It doesn't, these nuances in the tuning, which if the window of operation was more pronounced, was a bigger variance, you would notice it. The fact that they've kept everything so tightly within a tight band just makes it sound not aggressive and very easy to listen and very smooth. Okay, that's that. Now this is compared with the Blessing 3. And here I could go two ways. I could either normalize it at 1K, which this would be the case, or I could normalize it at 500 Hertz, okay, which then that would be the situation. Either way, it is evident that the Blessing has got more energy in the upper mids and the treble. It's noticeable, and the bass by default obviously then sounds thinner. Look, honestly, it doesn't really make a difference which way I'm here now doing the normalizing for these two IEMs. The Blessing 3 is a more detailed, a more technically capable IEM, and the bass by virtue of the way that the emphasis has been done on it being a vocal-centric IEM, the Blessing 3, it just sounds thinner. Although, as you can see, when I normalize it here at 500, it's basically got the same sort of bass, a very nicely done tuck. And the truth is this, the Blessing 3 does sound good. It does sound good, okay? And then finally, well, I showed it first, but I'll show it again. The Performer 8, again, very nicely done IEM in terms of its tuning. Everything within a window of operation of 6 dBs, roughly 6.5 dBs. I mean, fantastic. The Performer 8, I think, deserves the merit that it's gotten. I can understand that not everybody might like it, but it is a truly very special IEM. All right. Anyway, guys, I hope this was able to help you guys position the SL41. And like I said, any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me. And yes, one last thing, I've seen some of you have been asking me to make a Patreon account, and I think I will go ahead and make that Patreon account. At least if I do get some funds coming in, at least use those funds to continue help me buying these IEMs and bringing you further reviews and who knows. And as for the MYER-AUDIO, I hope they do watch this video, and I hope they do get me a 6BA as soon as possible. When it's ready, they let me know so I can acquire it and bring you that, because I've had that request as well already quite a few times. Okay, anyway guys, you take care now. Bye bye.